Until recent events south of the border, many people may not have heard the term sanctuary city, but they have now, especially here in London. City Councillor Tanya Park led the effort to get City Council to move on this, and she's with us now to explain. Tell us about the motion that you put forward.
Thank you, Nan. So the motion that I brought forward was twofold. The first part was to direct our staff to go out and consult with our local stakeholders and also our own Diversity, Inclusion and Anti-Oppression Committee to talk about what is our local solution for a sanctuary city and to come back with the appropriate arrangements. And the second part of that motion was to ask our mayor and direct our staff to communicate with the federal and provincial government to say that London is always willing and ready to accept refugees from these 7 countries that the President's executive order had banned.
Why did you put this motion forward?
I think that it's incumbent upon any leader in a community when you see anything like this is basically just division in the community and based primarily on systemic racism. It's our job to stand up against that at every turn and to set the tone for the community that this sorts of things is just not appropriate and will not be accepted.
When I think of sanctuary, automatically I think of like a medieval church. What does being a sanctuary city mean, and does it have a legal definition?
Sure. To my knowledge, there is no legal definition within Canadian borders about what a sanctuary city is, so it's almost a municipality's right to create that own definition locally. And that's what the premise of the motion was for, to go out and communicate with our stakeholders that we're working on our own diversity and inclusion plan, and also talking with our own diversity, inclusion and anti-oppression committee, because they should certainly have some input into what our own local context of that definition is.
What kind of response have you had from people?
I would say there's 3 camps of response, to be quite honest. The first are individuals that are with an open mind and a caring heart that accepted this motion for what it was. The second camp, I would say, are folks that just had some really easy questions to ask and be answered, and then they joined the first camp. And the third camp, I would say, is a group of people with a very closed mind that no matter how much information you give them, just would never support this.
And for people living outside of the city, what kind of reception have you had?
I've had very positive reception. I've received emails and phone calls from shore to shore across Canada from different city councillors and different advisory committee members saying, what are you guys doing in London and how can we do it here?
Regarding the criticism, I want to read a passage from a change.org petition started by Amir Farahi voicing some concerns, and he writes, "We have been told that we don't have money for social services and our depleted infrastructure, yet somehow we can now take care of illegal immigrants and provide a safe haven for them to operate outside the law. That although we have people living in third world conditions here at home and arguably a humanitarian crisis of our own, we can help solve all the issues in the world. It's time to get our priorities straight." What's your response to concerns like Amir's?
Yeah, so primarily, let's dial back and think about what a municipality offers. Transit, library services, water, wastewater management, parks and recreational facilities, and even access to information. At no point when anybody accesses those services does any municipal staff member say, show me your citizenship. That just does not happen. So it's imperative for us to set the tone for the community, and for obvious reasons, there's laws in the country of Canada to be followed, and municipalities need to help individuals navigate those laws. And
but even just going to the library to get a library card, you do need ID, don't you?
You just prove where you live within the City of London, but you can read a book, you just can't take it out of the building.
Have you had discussions with the London Police? Are they on board?
Yeah, so I had a meeting this week actually with Chief, and the Chief said that the different police services throughout Ontario that are having the same conversation are coming together to talk about what kind of changes can we make internally.
Do you think this is more of a symbolic move than anything?
I think symbols are very important, and I think that...
Why?
Because we have individuals in our community right now that have joined us in a very difficult conversation about what the state of racism is in the community. And a few months ago we had a conversation, and it would make anybody just absolutely shocked about how people are treated in our own community. And we need to stand up against that very firmly and very loudly. So that's where I'm going with this.
The idea of a sanctuary city in Canada seems to be pretty new. Toronto became the first city in 2013 to declare itself a sanctuary city. Have you studied Toronto's mistakes?
I think we're going to do that as a community, look at what's working and what's not working. And I think, to go back to Mr. Farahi's points, we're not seeing any of those fears in reality with the experience of Toronto or Vancouver.
And what kind of training and financial support needs to be in place to make this move effective?
Yeah, by practice, nothing different is going to change within the municipality. Earlier, some folks were talking about the access to Ontario Works and those sorts of things. To access those financial supports, individuals will certainly have to show citizenship and those sorts of documentation, because that's a delegated task to municipalities, and we cannot change the rules around that. But in terms of what municipal services are offering.
What kind of services does the municipal, because some people might not know what those are.
Parks and recreation, access to information, water, wastewater, library services, transit, etc.
Can someone get an apartment within that zone? Or would you need like legal ID to get an apartment?
So for access to housing, we have a housing registry and an access center, and you have to prove where you live currently or if you have access to those sorts of things.
Why do you think a move like this is important to a city like London?
Yeah, I think that London, we certainly have a bad reputation for what happens within the social fabric of our community, and it's important that we stand up and say this is what's actually happening here in London, and what we'll stand for and what we won't stand for.
So what's the next move in the process to get to make it a sanctuary city?
Right, so we're still in the community consultation phase, and I expect that we'll see something back at council for debate in the near future.
And are you going to involve people in London? Do they have a voice?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And how are you going to do that?
So I've had conversations, coffee talk conversations about this. I'm hearing it on Twitter, or on Facebook, and email and phone calls. And I'm out in my community listening.
Well, as somebody who grew up in London, my family came here as refugees. London has a special place in my heart. So good luck with everything that you're trying to do.
Well, thank you very much, Nan.
Thank you for being here.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.